Hello, this is Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Radio Show. And on today's show, we're going to give an update on the state of Harris County, Texas, and Houston, Texas. And we have two people that are very well qualified to give us a full understanding of what are the driving issues today in Harris County. And we have here in the studio, I'm very honored to have Orlando Sanchez, who is running for Harris County Judge. Orlando, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Chris. How are you?
Good. It's good. And it's good to finally have you on the show.
Good to be here.
We have a very interesting woman, Raquel Hernandez Boujourne, and she is running for Commissioner of Precinct 2.
Yes, Harris County, Commissioner of Precinct 2.
Excellent. Very good. Well, we got a lot to get into in a very short time, so I want to jump right into it. And I just want to open it up to both of you one at a time. Tell me a little bit about yourself and why you've chosen to run for your respective positions. And Orlando, why don't you lead us off?
So, Chris, I'm an immigrant. I was born in Havana, Cuba, so I know communism firsthand. And in 1962, my father was offered a job as the first Spanish broadcaster in Major League Baseball for the then Colt 45s. Of course, he took the job, and he stayed as a broadcaster for the Houston Astros for about 30 years. So I'm a product of Houston. Went to public schools here, and then as soon as I got out, I joined the U.S. Air Force, and then I left the Air Force and joined the Texas Air National Guard, where I served for 7 years. I then went to the University of Houston, got my undergraduate degree. I started law school, but I withdrew to run for the legislature in 1992. And I was the Republican nominee for the Texas House. And then in 1995, I became the first Hispanic immigrant ever elected citywide in the city of Houston when I won the position for the at-large position 3. I served for 6 years.
As a state representative?
No, as a city councilman.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And served for 6 years until 2001. I served with two mayors, the former Mayor Bob Lanier, 2 terms, and then the last term I served with the former police commissioner from New York City, former police chief of Houston, former police chief of Atlanta, and the former drug czar, Lee Brown. And but Lee Brown had made some terrible financial decisions that actually put the city of Houston on a course of, a lot of debt and financial disaster. So I ran against him. I had zero money in the account. He had $2.5 million. And as I mentioned to you earlier, it became the most historic race in the history of Houston because we voted more people in the runoff than the general election, which has never happened. Had not happened before. It hasn't happened since. Lost the race narrowly by a few thousand votes, stayed active, and then in 2005, I was elected the county treasurer for Harris County. So I ran the finances of the county for about 12 years until 2018 when the Beto O'Rourke effect swept every Republican out of Harris County.
Very good. That's quite a biography that you have, and quite a considerable amount of civic involvement within our local community.
Yeah, that's just on the public sector side. I mean, I'm also been extensive experience on the private sector side. I'm been on the board of directors of a bank for 18 years. I'm on the board of directors of the largest private hospital corporation in the United States called HCA Hospital. And I'm also past chairman of the University of Houston Foundation and chairman of the investment committee. Manage about $400 million for the University of Houston and the colleges and student scholarships.
Very good. Very good. Excellent. So, Raquel, tell us about yourself. I think your story is very interesting as well. You're a lot younger than the both Orlando and myself, but you've packed a lot into those years.
Thank you. I'm 39, so I'll take that. I have no political background. I have been a builder for the last 16 years, literally started a company at 22 years old with my husband and bootstrapped it, grew it because we just loved community. We loved meeting people. The awesome thing about construction is you get to work out with people from all different kinds of backgrounds of education. And so people that were high school dropouts all the way to doctorates work in construction, even now to this day. And so it's been a journey, but we were really successful because we did it with purpose. Every project had purpose. And so I've just kind of, I don't know, it was kind of became my moral obligation to get into politics last year once I recognized how broken our county has become. Specifically, I'll go into a little bit later more of my personal story about witnessing firsthand a child disappear from our community. But, I was at the top of my game as a chief executive officer, built an incredible business that served other small businesses and helped people grow. Loved what I got to do, started a foundation with my husband 3 years ago, wanting to just get back to where we started and where we came from. And just felt, after prayerful thought of, I just couldn't sleep at night understanding how bad the county has gotten, that I really needed to get involved and activate into politics. So now here I am learning this political world, and it has definitely been an experience thus far. But, I always say, like, the will of God will never take you where the grace of God won't protect you. And literally I'm stepping into this every single day with faith, wanting to change and just make it a better place for all of us. So
Excellent. Very good. That's very inspiring. One of the things that we say regularly on this show is that it is local activism that will save the country more than anything else. All things happen at the local level, and we need people to get off the couch, off of the NFL Sundays, and get into the political sphere, start becoming active in their communities. So I'm certainly glad that you've done that. That's excellent.
thank you.
So one of the things that everyone's talking about right now is property taxes, and all the way from the state of Ohio to the state of Texas, you hear now the idea being trial ballooned of eradicating property taxes. I know property taxes is an issue in Harris County, but tell me what your opinion is on taxation in Harris County and the dynamic change that's needed in that area.
You want to go first?
Well, like any enterprise, it has to have a stream of revenue. For government, of course, it's taxes. And the question is, at what level are we going to tax the citizens? And if you've lived in Harris County for any period of time, you know that taxes, particularly property taxes, because unlike the city of Houston has essentially three streams of revenue. They get revenue from permits, like if you want a garbage dumpster on your property, you have to pay. If you want to put in a fire alarm, you have to pay. If you want to put a security alarm, you have to pay the city. It's all fees to the city of Houston. In addition to that, the city of Houston has a sales tax. And beyond that, they also have a property tax. So they have three pretty good streams of revenue. The county only has one stream of revenue, and that's property taxes. And so if anyone has been paying attention over the course of the last year or two, property taxes have increased about 26%, which is a dramatic increase. We hear about affordability for homes, and there's two factors that are driving the cost of living through the roof, particularly for the lower income folks, those folks that are renters, and that is the cost of insurance and the cost of property taxes. The average person that rents an apartment, let's say, and pays $2,000 a month, if there's a substantial property increase and a substantial insurance casualty increase, that's passed on to the renter. They don't get an exemption like homeowners do. If you're over 65, you get a pretty good exemption now, about $120,000. It's supposed to go up next biennium, according to the governor, to $180,000. But a renter doesn't get that, so they have to pay the brunt of that. The question is, how do you rein in government spending, which is out of control at Harris County? I'll remind you that when I was county treasurer, we were reducing our general obligation bond, and we were not relying on what's called tax anticipation notes to cover next year's expenses. That's basically borrowing ahead of time. We weren't doing that, Chris. We were financially in the black. We had money left over every year since Republicans were in office.
What year was this?
Well, up to 2018.
Okay, so you're saying up to 2018, are you saying the county was solvent?
Solvent.
In good financial health?
We were in the
Excellent
black,
plan.
yeah. We actually had money in the bank.
So this nightmare scenario that we're in now is very recent.
8 years.
Yeah.
Because of the reign of the Democrats and, of course, Lena Hidalgo in the commissioner's court continue to raise property taxes and continue to spend voraciously. I mean, they have a voracious appetite for spending. Whether it's, in the old days, if a elected official or a county employee wanted to travel, they had to justify it. Most travel was kept to inside the city, the state of Texas. Occasionally, maybe you had to go to Washington, D.C. for some kind of convention. But it was rare for county officials to travel abroad. Well, we all know Lena Hidalgo wanted to travel to Paris, France on the taxpayer dime and take staff with her. And so travel has become out of control. Now they don't have to justify where they go.
They view themselves as royalty now.
Correct.
They've gone from civil servants, from community servants, to royalty figures. They probably have drivers and security guards.
Well, I was just about to mention that. So we used to have a county judge here that was very popular by the name of Ed Emmett. And we all parked underneath at the basement of the county administration building. Ed Emmett drove himself to work every day, drove himself to his meetings, and drove himself home. Lena Hidalgo now uses paid county deputies to drive her around. And this is just how government
And how long ago
goes.
was Ed Emmett in I mean, like, when did this transition happen where now our county officials have to have drivers?
Well, when the Democrats came in, they
2018.
got all these.
2018, yeah.
They got all these perks now. Whether it's travel, whether it's private security. Well, not private security; it's provided by the taxpayers. But the important thing is that it continues to grow by leaps and bounds, and the taxpayers are having to foot the bill.
Yeah, and I concur with everything you said. I mean, basically, taxes, and this is over a 3-year period, by the way, taxes have increased almost 30% in the last 3 years. That's not sustainable if you're a homeowner. That's not sustainable if you're a renter or a small business, commercial property owner. I mean, some commercial property owners say it's even more than 30%. So, I mean, they're spending our taxpayer money like it's their personal checkbook. And we have witnessed it firsthand. It's election year. I don't know how many mailers I've gotten in the mail, specifically the current commissioner in my position, in Precinct 2, sent out a 12-page magazine. I mean, that doesn't cost the taxpayer just a couple nickels. It's several dollars. We're talking millions of dollars that they have used of our taxpayer money. And I guarantee you this, we're anticipating another deficit next year because they're not going to be able to fill the gap with all these one-time pet projects that they have going on, that they sold, land or whatever to fill this deficit this year. They're going to be in serious trouble, and they're going to raise our taxes again.
Yeah.
I think they get on their knees at night during hurricane season and pray for a storm so that they could, raise our taxes. And that's what they've done for all these years. They use disasters, and they have leveraged those disasters to create quick revenue. They've misappropriated and misused all kinds of funds, like COVID funds with the ARPA. I mean, they created all kinds of projects and, different initiatives that had absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the core services of what the county commissioner's court is responsible for. So it's gotten out of control. We definitely need leadership that understands what it means to sign your name on the front of a check more so than on the back of one. We need to hold people accountable, and every cent has to be justified. And it's just not. I mean, it's crazy to me. Some of the stuff that they've spent our money on. So, and I know you had, I had mentioned to you earlier, we were at a $200 million deficit earlier this year before they balanced the budget. They were saying that. And they gave out $468,000 to an adult softball league. I went and I spoke out against it.
Okay, real quick, you're talking about the homosexual event?
Yes, the homosexual. It's called
It was like a homosexual sporting event or something?
It's called the Gay World Series.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a child who plays baseball. When we have to do anything for his baseball team, we are responsible as parents to fundraise. Why in the world, if the county is in a deficit, would we think that it is responsible spending to give to an adult league?
Right.
I couldn't wrap my head around it.
Okay, so here's my question for you. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. What's your
my
question?
question is, you're in Precinct 2. The debts are outstanding. The debts are outrageous. They're raising taxes. The raised taxes most likely won't cure the debt problem, right? It won't make us financially solvent. They're running these homosexual sporting events. Is that resonating with the people in Precinct 2? as I understand it, who traditionally vote Democrat.
It's not resonating with anybody because I think it doesn't matter how you voted. Everybody's sick and tired of paying so much in their taxes, working their butts off every day, going to their 8 to 5s, and then getting a second job to pay their bills. And then they get a new tax bill. We all got our tax bill in the mail. It went up again. And then they go off and spend our money like it's a personal checkbook. Look, everybody can support whoever you want to. I have a foundation. My husband and I put our own money that we have hard earned from our business into the initiatives that we want to support. Like if the commissioner wants to support an adult softball league and a gay softball league, he can do that. Just pull out your own checkbook and do it.
Yeah.
That's
they're funding their own personal charitable interests with the county's money. You said something about them selling land to cover the debt. What was that? What happened?
So yes, the county owns property, and apparently, in order to get this year's balanced budget, and they have all been in agreement, they had to sell off some of the assets that belong to the county in order to make up some of the deficit. Now, those are one-time opportunities to be able to sell and get that revenue in.
Right.
Those aren't going to exist next year.
Yeah.
So now, they're calling it for what it is right now. They are at risk for losing their credit rating as well. And it goes against our borrowing. It goes against the quality of how we conduct our business, how we are seen at the
So the
bond
county's
level.
actually selling off assets at this point.
Yes. We had to, in order to make the budget balanced, they had to get creative with how to make it work.
Okay. So I would say that the Democrat Party is not, it is clearly not what it was in the Obama years. It was it was such a popular thing. And I think today it's bruised. But I think that one of the threats is the establishment element infesting our own Republican Party. And Orlando, I want to ask, do you see that as a threat? Do you see any indication of leftism entering our own Republican Party as the Democrat Party is a wounded animal? Are they sort of shifting tactics to sort of infiltrate the right?
Well, there's discussion about that in the executive committee of the Republican Party at the state level. As you know, there has been a move to close the primaries, number one, because there is concern by the grassroots activists that a lot of people that are left-leaning are now filing as and or voting in Republican primaries to sort of dilute the Republican choice. That'll be decided by the state Republican Executive Committee, and I don't know how that's going to play out. Remember that Democrats have not led in this state, have not held a statewide office in the last quarter century. And so they're a bit desperate. They keep saying, the sleeping giant will wake up or Beto is going to win. And, every year they have this great blue wave prediction that never comes to fruition. And so what they're trying to do is make sure that the urban counties are now dominated by Democrat liberal mentality. We've lost Dallas County, we've lost Harris County, we've lost Travis County, we've lost Bexar County, and we've lost El Paso County, the largest counties in Texas. Rural Texas still remains conservative. But what's happening is that a lot of folks that have been playing in the sort of Democrat sandbox over the last few years are now starting to infiltrate, in my opinion, into the Republican Party primaries to try to get in some of their candidates. And I have one of those in my primary, and I'm happy to talk about that if you want to expand.
Yeah, I mean,
on
I've seen this already. I mean, we have KP George in Fort Bend County who's entered the Republican primary and is attending all the events. So I think that we're seeing this happen right in front of our eyes. But yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the there are 6 candidates running on the Republican side for the nomination by the Republican Party for county judge. Remember that the Republicans have to nominate someone and the Democrats have to nominate someone. There are 6 of us, but and there are some good candidates. But one of them is a longtime member of the Texas AFL-CIO, has actually sat on the executive committee of the Texas AFL-CIO, which is the American Federation of Labor. and the Congress of Industrial Organizations, which is a labor union that essentially, Chris, and you
It's
probably
a national level organization.
oh yeah, it's huge.
It's essentially the national labor union for the country.
It includes the teacher federations, the Teamsters, the truckers, the seafarers. Anybody involved in the labor movement is members of the AFL-CIO.
It's the umbrella organization for all of the power union groups.
Correct. Now, Texas is a right-to-work state, so you don't have to be a union member to get a job. You just have to have the skills. However, one of the opponents in the primary for the Republican nomination has been a member of the Texas AFL-CIO.
And this is for county judge, Harris County judge, a Republican that is running for Harris County judge.
Yes, who's been on the executive committee of the Texas AFL-CIO.
So he's clearly a union man.
Very much a union man, and somewhat of a successful union man that he's been able to get collective bargaining for his union members in the city of Houston. And the city of Houston is the only entity that has collective bargaining. And let me tell you why.
May I see?
Yeah.
Can you explain that? What does that mean? He got collective bargaining. First of all, what is the man? Who did it, and what did he do in the city of Houston?
Well, for years, the labor union has been moving towards collective bargaining, which collective bargaining is what they have in New York, what they have in Chicago, and what they have in Los Angeles, which means that the nurses, the Federation of Teachers, the firefighters, anybody that's unionized, steel workers, that work for a governmental entity can demand a certain salary. And let's say that the city aldermen in Chicago say, we can't afford that. We can't pay you $150,000. We can only pay you $120,000 annual salary. So they will go on strike. So this is what's happened in Chicago when they shut down the schools, you remember 2 years ago. Remember when they closed down the hospitals, when the nurses went on strike. So collective bargaining gives unions the ability to strike. Now, in Texas and in Houston, specifically, they don't allow first responders to go on strike. But they do then take their labor dispute to a arbiter. And the arbiter steps in front of the city council and the mayor and decides what the taxpayers are going to pay these employees. And that's the danger of collective bargaining. Remember, I told you earlier that New York City in 1975 filed bankruptcy because they couldn't afford what the unions were demanding. Chicago is in the same boat, $20 billion in debt. And Los Angeles County is currently $80 billion in debt. Now, here's why that's significant. All of those debts by those governmental agencies are backed by what's called general obligation bonds. General obligation bonds is the government's credit card. So when government needs to borrow money, they go to Wall Street and they issue a bond. And the rate that we pay, the interest rate, depends on our credit rating by Standard & Poor's or Moody's or all the rating agencies. And but the interesting thing is, and you know this, anytime you go to a bank, you have to put up collateral. What's your collateral to cover this loan? Well, guess what the collateral is in government debt? Property, your property taxes. And so the more that government issues in debt, the more your property is on line for future escalation of taxes. It's the only way we get to pay down the debt. And that's the danger of having collective bargaining and unions deciding, not elected officials, what salaries are going to be paid to union members.
Okay, has this happened in Texas? Has this ever happened?
No, Houston got it because the unions, the AFL-CIO, put a measure on the ballot for the city of Houston voters to decide if they wanted to give, among other things, collective bargaining to the firefighters, and they got that. And that's a win for the union. If you listen to my opponent, he'll say, this is my win. I've been effective. I mowed over Sylvester Turner. And when Mayor Whitmire came in, he gave them $650+ million of taxpayer money. Do the firefighters deserve a reasonable salary? Of course they do. Can the taxpayers afford $700 million on top of the debt that the city of Houston has? The answer probably is no, we can't.
So if I understand this correctly, the firefighters can come in and they can say, we want a pay raise. And if the city doesn't meet their pay raise, it goes to an arbiter. And that arbiter will determine whether or not they get the pay raise. And they often do rule in favor of the labor union employees.
That's exactly how we got the $700 million.
And what the labor unions do, the firefighters do, is they use as leverage the property taxes. And so if they can call on those property taxes, and so if the property taxes aren't covering it, then the city has to raise taxes.
No, employees can't call in. The collateral for whatever money a city or a county has to borrow is our property taxes. That's the collateral.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Because Wall Street knows that they have to raise enough taxes to pay the debt. And you can pile up enough debt, like any family, that eventually you file bankruptcy. And people say, well, governments don't file bankruptcy. And the answer is the heck they don't. There have been many municipalities that have filed bankruptcy. Corporations, look, let me give you an example. You're a young man, you may not remember this, but the unions had the three major automakers so strapped in the 1970s that they had what was called legacy costs built into every car. They had to pay for all these insurance and benefits that the unions got. Well, what happened to the auto industry? It went down the tubes, and then, of course, in came Toyota with a Corolla with no legacy costs, and they were selling cars for $3,000 all day long. So they basically have, we've gotten back a little bit to auto industry, but think about Boeing. You remember when the doors were falling off of Boeing? What did the unions do for Boeing? They went on strike demanding a 46% pay raise when Boeing was on their knees trying to fix their production problems. And so it's very dangerous to let unions decide how much government taxpayers are going to pay in salaries. And another thing I'll tell you, we have 23,000 employees in Harris County. Could you imagine if we unionized all the county employees? We'd go broke.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about debt stacking up on top of debt. Raquel, you were telling me about zombie hospitals.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So, before that too, I think going back to this firefighter thing really quick.
Please. Mm-hmm.
I think though firefighters and law enforcement officers, we did have a crisis where they had to get 2 jobs, sometimes 3 jobs, which is wrong, because if you're going to call 911 to come and answer a crisis and then go work at Walmart, some of these guys actually were cart pushers at Walmart. That's wrong. Now, I'm a capitalist, I'm the complete opposite of socialist. I believe in free market. I think corporations specifically, like they did a big strike in New York against Starbucks. Well, AI is going to take those kind of jobs first because big corporations are going to definitely invest into things like that. And I have to say that industries such as construction and trades and plumbers and electricians, now we're seeing a big increase in that. But I think that there was definitely a need for a correction, and I agree that we definitely don't want to unionize the structure of the county. However, I got the endorsement from the Houston Police Officers Union. I mean, those guys at the county were making $55,000 a year and expected to put on a vest to go protect us and then going and working at Walmart. That's just not acceptable. So I was very happy that they did approve the pay parity because now a deputy's starting salary is in the $70,000 range, which is a more livable wage. I mean, it's just not fair for someone to put their life at risk. But, as far as the spending for moving on to zombie hospitals, I like to call them zombie hospitals, homelessness, chronic homelessness has doubled this last year. And when I've been out in the county, just out in the county talking to constituents and just people, just my neighbors, asking them, what are some of your concerns? It's normally one of the top 3 things outside of taxes and crime, of course, flooding. It's top 5 things, and homelessness always comes up. We have invested tens of millions of dollars into what I like to say are like these zombie facilities, and they're zombie facilities because sadly, they're not intended to really correct the issue. The people that are getting wealthy off of these investments are private investors or these nonprofits that get these huge checks every single year, but we're not really fixing the issue. Everybody knows whenever you do the research, you can statistically see that transitional housing and long-term programs to be able to help, the root of the issue, which a lot of these people are either severely mentally ill or they have drug issues. There's got to be long-term solutions for that. But that's not really the responsibility of the county. That's not one of the core services that the county is responsible for. However, public safety is the responsibility of the county. So if, like I said, chronic homelessness and businesses of concern because of their safety, then it does become our business to try to figure out, okay, what is the solution? And I don't think that investing tens of millions of dollars in one-night stay hospitals where the individual can come in, stay for one night, leave, go do their drugs, then come in again, that's not really a smart, thing to offer. And really, you're not doing a service to the person that's struggling on the street. And not only that, but that's really what the drug cartels want, right? I mean, they want them to stay on the street so they can keep feeding them drugs. And frankly, a lot of the nonprofits want the chronic homelessness to double because if they don't have people in their beds, how are they going to get paid? And so, there is a way to properly strategically partner with some of the organizations that actually do see statistically positive results. There's a lot of counties around the United States, I think, that have done probably better with resolving the homelessness. We definitely don't want to become the Los Angeles hub of the crisis or the crisis that they're dealing with in California, in Austin. It's a very scary thing that is happening here, especially in the more center of Precinct 2 in the East End. You see it's very, very serious concern. And even Pasadena, I mean, you could just drive and you see these encampments of people just that have pretty much made their life living under the bridge. And you can tell something's off. They're not of sound mind. And I think it's awful that we have allowed for this to become what it is.
Yeah, what is the state of human beings today? I mean, we have these, shelters for our dogs. If there's a rescue dog, everyone runs to it. We have humans that are living under bridges, dying, decaying.
Yeah,
it's a sad state of affairs.
And the veterans, when I hear about the veterans, that for me really hits. Like my grandfather was a airborne Purple Heart, 2 Purple Heart recipient, and a lot of these guys who have served, just like we have somebody that's actually working in our campaign, came out of the Army or came out of the Marines, went straight into civilian life. That's a huge transition from over there to over here. And, it's tough to hear about some of them ending up on the streets. I don't think anybody that has served their country should ever end up in that circumstance.
Well, I mean, this whole show's covering the decay of our society, you know, from these negotiations where we want to, that are just top heavy, in every way, shape, and form. Sort of the debt implosion of our local governments.
Yeah.
I want to give a real quick shout out to our featured product, which is the X39 patch, got right here on my wrist. And basically, this company is the fastest growing company in the world 2 years in a row. It's photolight therapy. Your body emits light. We never knew this, but it emits light. With the awakening that we're happening right now in the medical sphere, we're learning these things. And what happens? Your body emits light. This patch, just a patch. And what it does, it redirects the light back into your body, and it stimulates your stem cells. It releases a peptide that stimulates your stem cells. Everything is, it's not FDA approved to its credit, but all clinical trials are done, and it's a patented technology with proven results. The results are amazing. RFK Jr. wears this patch. You see him at 70 whatever years old doing gymnastics with the physique of a linebacker. It's largely because of this patch. This patch is incredible. And so it stimulates your stem cells. Stem cells are the essence of youth. You see the running back, he gets stem cell injections to get back on the field. The Hollywood actress gets stem cell injections to look young again. Well, this is the same thing, but it's not an injection. It just realigns your stem cells and it reinvigorates them. The results are incredible. For myself, I was having energy crashes. I was having brain fog. I was getting sleepy behind the wheel. All of that's gone. It's all gone. Also, after the age of 40, all of us men, we have that pressure on our bladder. We have to go to the bathroom all the time. That's gone as well for me. As far as my friend David, he's in his 70s. He had football knees. The knees healed up. He was having eyesight that was going away. The eyesight healed up. His wife fell in the shower, hit her head for 10 years. She had migraines. That healed up. I have a friend who's a PTSD war veteran. He was taking heavy meds at night just to sleep. It's all gone. It's a very affordable technology. It's the patch. And again, the result, this company, again, I will say it again, the revenues are incredible, and it's simply because it's a proven technology. So it's the X39 patch, and to learn more, text the word Patriot to 330-6062-304 to learn more about it or to have the order link sent to you. It's an incredible technology. Okay, so
Can I talk really quick about law enforcement?
Yeah, please go. Mm-hmm.
My current commissioner in Precinct 2, or I'm going to say the current commissioner in Precinct 2, I got the Houston Police Officers Union endorsement. He served with HPD for 20 plus years. Why would he not get that endorsement, right?
Adrian Garcia.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say he's been the most anti-law enforcement commissioner probably to ever exist on the court. Because how can you serve beside your brothers and sisters, but basically not even have a relationship or support anything that your current elected constable proposes? I think it's been horrendous. I think it's also been the result of why we see increased crime around our precinct. My particular area in the precinct, by the way, we can't win the Republican judge seat without winning Precinct 2. So Precinct 2, a lot of times are like, well, why is it so important, or why is it as important? We cannot win the judge without winning Precinct 2. Or I'm going to say it's easier to win Precinct 2 than the other ones. The last election, we actually voted Republican. But I just wanted to mention that because a lot of these issues like chronic homelessness, the human trafficking, the median income of everyday people that live in our precinct has been stale for years. There's no training as they were committing to help, get people out of the system, this cycle of poverty that they've been in for so long. A majority of our precinct is Hispanic. And it has really bothered me for them to say, oh, I've always been with the people because I represent the people. But then they put forth leaders, or what they call leaders, to say, oh, well, Republicans hate Hispanics. Look at all this stuff with immigration. But then they put forth someone like Jasmine Crockett, who talks about us only as good of, like, we're only as good to her as, we are, like, really worthy of picking cotton, cleaning the house, cutting the yard. I mean, and she's literally, there's like videos out there. They questioned her about it, she said Hispanics have slave mentality. Like, that's all we are to them. That's what I felt like for a long, that's all I am. Like, and being in construction, I felt like that was very hurtful. And by the way, my grandparents were cotton pickers, and they did pretty okay for themselves. So I just think, like, we have to do something. We have to vote differently this time. I know that we all watch the national politics, but it's really important to activate. I decided to come out publicly and leave a job that I love as a very strong Republican businesswoman, conservative, who cares about her community. And I know there's a lot of other people out there that are feeling the same way that I do. And I just want people to take a look at the people and the person. And if you wake up in Harris County, it's not rainbows and butterflies. It is very hard. Life in the county has gotten harder. And we can name all these issues, but the bottom line is you got to vote. You got to get out there. You got to activate. You got to vote. Look at the issues. Don't keep voting the same way and expect a different outcome. It's just, you're not going to get it. So I think we're fighting. I know Orlando cares as much as I do about wanting better for all of our people, and we deserve better. We deserve better. We need better.
So we have just a few more short minutes. And Raquel, I want to ask you one last question. You were telling me about a story about someone who was trafficked in your neighborhood or something of that sort. Can you please tell us what happened?
So he sadly lost his father, came over here from Guatemala 2 years ago, lost his father suddenly. And because of the Biden administration's lax on actually vetting guardians. When they went to go do the wellness check, there was an individual who had never been on his paperwork before, all of a sudden claiming to be his uncle. 30 days later, this child disappears. Now, the thing about the situation is, sadly, undocumented children, they claim come unaccompanied, and we talked about that because they're not technically unaccompanied. They're accompanied by somebody.
They're accompanied by a trafficker.
But predators, cartels, organized criminals, those are the perfect targets. And Harris County is the number one leading in the nation for human trafficking. And that, to me, is when I decided, okay, I can no longer sit behind my beautiful chief executive officer desk. I need to stand up and I need to get involved because enough is enough. And our community deserves better. And they're using these kids as a political play to try to move hearts. But the reality is that they don't care about them. The Democrats don't care about them. They didn't care about them last year or the last 20 years. They haven't done anything to help the Hispanic community, not in my precinct. So, I mean, I'm here to advocate for change, but that's also why it's so important to follow the law. Because when this happens, we're creating an increase for situations and circumstances like that to just continue to elevate.
Yeah. What my premise on human trafficking is I don't believe law enforcement intends to tackle it. I think that when they do these sex stings, I think they're for show and nothing more. I don't think they're rooting out the issue. The issue is the enterprise-wide traffickers. If you want it, all resources should be marshaled towards rooting out the enterprise-wide traffickers, and I never see the law enforcement going up that way.
Well, when your lead chief executive officer, which is your commissioner, is anti-law enforcement and doesn't support the constable and doesn't want to work with ICE to help get the organized criminals out who are trafficking these young children, then this is what happens. So that is why we are where we are, and I'm asking for trust and votes to change this because it has to stop. Otherwise, we're going to see it happening worse. And if you think that you are special and it couldn't happen to your child, you're wrong. It can. It's a very scary world. So I think like we need a leader who's willing to fight, but also support and follow, the laws that were put in place to protect everyone. Yeah. Everyone.
So Orlando, in our last few minutes here, tell us, close us out. Tell us what are some of the driving issues that we didn't cover so far yet that you want to tackle should you become Harris County judge?
Well, they're the obvious. I mean, obviously, tax reduction is number one. Mm-hmm. Eliminate the voracious appetite that this county government has and continue to reduce taxes. I know the legislature's on top of it, and if anybody's heard the governor, they're talking about reducing the percentage of property tax increases every year. Now, the taxes can't exceed 10% of it was the previous year. In other words, your appraisal, what you're taxed for, can't exceed 10% of what it was last year. They want to reduce that to 3%. Mm-hmm. They want to increase the tax exemption from $120,000 to $180,000, and there's just a lot of pressure now to reduce taxes. And I'm all for reduction of taxes. That's the first thing we've got to do is reduce property taxes. And I tell you, it really hurts the business owners. For example, let's say we're selling bottles of water. If you're a business owner, you get taxed on what's called personal business property. In other words, this microphone is taxed, this computer's taxed, this bottle of water is taxed, your keys are taxed.
Right. I've gotten the little piece of paper
right
where someone with a taxing authority comes by and says, this is what we believe is in your office, and you have to go justify it or object
Correct.
to it.
You have to render every year to the tax authorities of what your inventory is, your lights, your cameras, everything, your chair you're sitting on. Mm-hmm. But here's the sad thing. If you're selling water, and this year the county will tax you on this bottle of water. Mm-hmm. If you don't sell this inventory because the economy's bad, they will come back next year and tax you on it again. And then if you don't sell it in the second year, they will tax you yet a third year. So you're paying 3 years of inventory you've already paid for in the beginning. That's just absurd. Property, not only are homeowners getting hammered, but business property, personal property is getting hammered. So reduction of property taxes is number one, but you've got to rein in the spending of government. Number two, the reduction of toll road fees. We were told many years ago that the toll roads, once the debt was retired, that is the bonds that were issued for the construction of the toll roads, that it would diminish the toll road fee. Well, that's never happened. In fact, it's so it's such a profit center for the county that commissioners now getting hundreds of millions of dollars from the toll road fees into their precincts for them to use as they see fit. Number two, I think the deployment of bond money for flood control is important. Remember, in 2018, the voters of Harris County approved several $1 billion for flood improvement projects. That is to dredge lakes like Lake Houston around the Kingwood area, to expand our bayous, to concrete them and raise the bridges so that there wouldn't be drag on the water flowing out to the Gulf of Mexico. There were all kind of projects. What happened? The county decided that they weren't going to put those projects out. So that was 10 years ago, Chris. As you know, the purchasing power of a dollar diminishes over time. So what we could have bought for $2.5 billion 10 years ago, we can't buy today because the cost of labor goes up, the cost of materials goes up. She's in the construction business. She knows this to be a fact. So if we don't deploy these projects, the taxpayer isn't getting a bang for their dollars. Harris County is sitting on billions of dollars of flood control improvement projects. And then crime. As you know, we got into this ridiculous federal agreement called the O'Donnell case, where the county went above and beyond what the what the plaintiffs were asking for in the federal case. And so in the old days, when you were caught, let's say, overindulging at a bar and you were charged with a DWI, you would go to court. And the judge would say, well, I'm going to put a $10,000 bond on you. So you had to go get your own bond. And then the judge would say, we're going to put a breathalyzer on your steering column, so if you drink, you can't start the car. You had to pay for that. And in the old days, if you had to get an ankle monitor so that the probation department or the courts wanted to know where you were, you had to pay for that. And then you had to hire your own lawyer. Guess what? Today, we have the public defender office. So it's over $100 million that taxpayers now pay for lawyers for criminal defendants. The taxpayer pays for the breathalyzer on the steering column, and the taxpayer pays for the ankle monitor that the judges order. And if that weren't enough, we now have a defense fund for undocumented aliens that the taxpayer will pay for their lawyers to represent them in federal proceedings. So it's out of control. So we've got to reduce crime. We've got to improve the infrastructure for flood control in this area, and we've got to reduce property taxes, and we've got to give toll road users a break. I mean, toll road users are spending thousands of dollars a month in toll road fees.
By the way, the SHIP channel is $500 million over budget. So, the original budget was $1 billion. They're close to $1.5 billion right now. And the bleeding is going to continue. It's like the project that keeps on giving. So, I would love to be able to get in there and do a full audit of where every single cent goes.
An audit of the toll road authority.
Well, remember, the county is interesting. The Port of Houston is its own taxing entity. The Harris Health, which is Ben Taub and LBJ Hospital and all the affiliated clinics, are their own taxing authority. HISD is its own taxing authority. The toll road authority issues its own debt. So, commissioners should have more of a say in these out of control other areas. You have the county education department. That is its own taxing authority. That brings me to another point about public safety. Do you know how many certified police officers there are in Harris County? I mean, we hear all the time that the city of Houston doesn't have enough police officers to respond to priority one calls. Right when your life is on the line, it takes them about 10 minutes to respond. The mayor says 7 minutes, but by the time 911 gets the notification, calls the HPD dispatcher, they dispatch the police, so it's 10 minutes, right? A lot can happen in 10 minutes. There are 12,063 certified peace officers in Harris County. That includes the constables, the sheriff, the Houston Police Department, the Metropolitan Transit Authority, the University of Houston police officers, the Port of Houston police officers. All of the college campuses have certified police officers. The question is, if your life is on the line and there's a Metro police officer at the Valero station around the corner from you, why can't they respond to your life-threatening call?
Because they're designated for the metro.
But why? They're peace officers. They should be, exactly. But so you have these silos, these fiefdoms that don't allow cooperation. Right. It's ridiculous. There's 12,063
and their hands. Every one of them has their hands tied.
They can't even communicate with themselves. In other words, it's like New York City during 9/11. You had radio frequencies that the police couldn't communicate with the fire couldn't communicate with the Port Authority. I mean, it was a disaster. So there's things we can do to improve public safety. Using every available peace officer when your life is on the line is important. And so I want to create a regional cooperation so that any peace officer can answer an emergency call.
So to summarize, can I just say that
please.
I agree with everything you just said. It's basically lower taxes, fix infrastructure, and safer neighborhoods. And it's really not rocket science. But at the same time, it can get complex. It's gotten so complicated. If we would just stick to the core, then we would see a lot more efficiencies. Public safety is, of course, top, and so is taxes. But
the hole is deep in Harris County, and there certainly is a lot of issues that are steeped on top of one another, and of course, debt and taxation are the biggest of them all. I cannot believe that this spending spree, this financial kamikaze nosedive happened in just 8 years since 2018.
Well, and that's the problem when you elect someone that has no experience in running a government.
Are you talking about Rodney Ellis?
Well, Lena Hidalgo.
Right, I know.
Lena Hidalgo became the head of county, had zero experience, and then relied on Rodney Ellis's advice to railroad her into some really crazy stuff. But we're in the same situation now. One of my opponents that I talked about, the AFL-CIO guy, zero experience. The guy's been in the fire department 13 years, never promoted. Fired by the fire chief, actually, for not showing up to work for 3 days during COVID. We don't need to keep repeating the same thing over and over, hiring people with zero experience. I have 20 years of public service. I helped run the city of Houston, helped run Harris County. I know how to fix this problem. Let's get back to having money in the checkbook.
And where can we find out more about your campaign? Because I forgot to mention that. Yeah, OrlandoSanchez.com. And I forgot to mention mine is voteforraquel.com, VOTE 4 RAQUEL.com. We are on the streets block walking every week. If you want to be one of our volunteers, please sign up.
Great. Thank you, Raquel, for coming. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you stepping forward in this campaign. I see you're putting together quite an effort, quite a robust campaign. It's very noticeable. So appreciate that, and I look forward to seeing how that turns out for you.
Thank you. Well, we're going to win. I'm claiming it now. In the name of Jesus, we're going to win. We're going to take back the county.
I believe you.
I don't believe those local liars. I'm telling you, you don't know the data. Look at the numbers. Precinct 2 voted not just a Trump factor. We've won all the way down except for the sheriff. So there is a movement that is happening in my precinct, and the county people are tired. Vote for change, I'm telling you.
This woman wants to reach right through the screen right now and get you to vote. The amount of energy coming from this part of the set.
I know everybody is tired of the politics. They're tired of reading the news. They're tired of the infighting. They're tired of the drama. I'm just trying to get to business. I want everybody to live a better life. It's just that simple. Please vote for Raquel.com and get involved in this county race. It is critical. It is over your day-to-day life, livelihood, everything that affects your bottom line, affects your pocket. You need to get involved, do your research, and get out and vote.
In Orlando, I appreciate your time. I feel like we just scratched the surface on what you know. You're a world of information. I wish I could spend another hour with you because I feel like you have the answers for the county.
Well, been there, done that. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. Yeah, thank you. It was awesome.
Great. And we will be back next Tuesday with one more hot topic. Thank you very much. Have a great week.
This is The Chris Heasley Show, coming to you from Radio DeBang, the North America's premier broadcasting network.